all of you to think right now of a time back when you were, maybe not back, maybe just a time, where you had a Christmas present that it was the best Christmas present you've ever gotten. I think of that. It may take some of you like that. Maybe it'll be a little bit longer. Everyone thinking? I'm being serious here. Think. Oh, yes, thank you. Now I see the thinking faces. But yeah, think of that present. You have that present, anything jumping into your mind. That present, when you open it up, you're like, unbelievable, this is awesome, right? This is just the best thing. Yeah, and maybe something that mom and dad got you, maybe something that grandma and grandpa got you, or maybe something your spouse got you, or a child got you, or whatever that may be. You thinking of that? Good. All right, good. Keep thinking of that. Anyway, I'm going to share with you when I opened up a present many years ago, and a present that, man, I love it so much. I mean, it was great, and I remember getting it, and maybe you remember, and you just keep those pajamas on all day, and you don't really leave the site of where this present is, and you just play with it all the way until they pry you off of it. But I remember I had to be in elementary school, and Mom and Dad got me. Mom and Dad got me, the slot car race. You know what I'm talking about? The metal and all that stuff. Slot car, and you have the little trigger that's plugged in. Because like a video game? No, it was a slot car thing, and you put them on there and you just race. It's a racetrack, right? And it just goes, and you can put the pieces together. You can make a figure eight, and this was awesome because it had the pieces where you could do a loop, and then it also had the pieces where you could go like up on the wall and over. Anybody know? Yeah, and just play with this all the time, and it was great, and it was wonderful. And the thing is that it's still great because if you would go to my parents' house right now, it's set up. And we're still playing it from 20 years ago. No, but we set it back up. And it's awesome because now, just as I play with my dad, as a kid, now I'm playing with Elliot, 4-year-old, and my dad, and Audrey's walking across the tracks. And it's awesome. And I get to play with my brother-in-law as well, and we just play this all the time. But this is a great gift. It was a great gift, and it still is a great gift. And thank goodness it's Tessa. Dad has to take sandpaper sometimes on it to make it work. But I don't know why he does that, but he does it. So anyway, and so that's that. But it's a great gift. But I've learned that the reason that gift it wasn't just great at the time because it was awesome, and it still is awesome. But the reason that gift was great is because and I don't want to give Mom and Dad too much credit here, but they knew me. And they knew that when I opened that up, I was going to be like, how did you know? How did you know that this is what I wanted? They knew me. And the thing is that they also saw there that it was going to be a time where father and son would interact. Mom would watch. Sister would sort of watch. And they knew it was going to be relational. Right? And so here's this present that is just two little cards that have a little thing, and these things that go like this. I like how I just speak in vague terms. But anyway, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and you can't switch to another track. That's the track. And it just goes. And it was awesome. But it was awesome because it was relational. It was awesome because it was sitting down with Dad and playing for an hour or more, or just racing the cars. And that's the season. This Advent season, is a season that is based upon relationships. It's a relational season. This is the season where God said, I'm going to jump into this thing I created. This is a season where God said, I created this and now I'm going to take part in this. God is now giving of Himself to this world. That is God saying, I am now going to become relational in what I created. I'm going to become human. And I think this is something that makes this season special. And I think this is something as we celebrate this Advent season that we need to be reminded of. That it's God giving up Himself for us. That this is what Advent is. It's that when we get that present, like when Advent is the opening that present, it's like, oh, you're here. Oh, you really knew what we needed. That's a Savior. We needed this right now. We needed salvation through you. And that's what God is doing here. He's saying this is a relational thing. Everything right now is going to be about our relationship together. And so I think this is something that makes Christmas an amazing time, makes Advent an amazing time. And now the fancy word we sang earlier, like "Come Emmanuel," which means God with us, right? Emmanuel means God with us. The fancy word for that is incarnation. This is what happened. The incarnation took place. The incarnation is the moment when Jesus, the divine Son of the eternal Father, entered our story as a human baby. The incarnation, God coming with us. God being here, and God being around us, and God being just always watching over us, and God walking this earth. That is what happens. The incarnation. The baby that was born in Bethlehem. Jesus, born in Bethlehem. That's the incarnation. And that's something that I think is exciting for us to understand. The miracle of Christmas is that the infinite became finite. An infant fully human and still fully God. So the infinite, God, the infinite, became finite and a little baby. And a little baby. And I think that's something that just blows my mind, and something that just is really just makes me amazed. That this God, who is so big, this God, this Creator, then chose to come into this world for us. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. This is a good reminder. This isn't your NIV, but you can follow in NIV if you want, or follow in your Pew Bibles or whatever Bible. This is a version that I sort of knew, and I like it. So here we go. It says, "Before time itself was measured, the voice was speaking. The voice was and is God. The celestial voice remained ever present with the Creator. His speech shaped the entire cosmos, immersed in the practice of creating. All things that exist were birthed in Him." I love that. It talks about how big everything is. How God created the cosmos, the celestial presence, and this this beautiful language and how big everything is. Our Creator created everything. And He created you. And that's when I just sit back and I'm just amazed. That in the midst of God creating, in the midst of things being beautiful, in the midst of things being just amazing, God chose to then create us. And in choosing to create us, He then makes us beautiful. He then makes us wonderful. And He then places in our hands a mission that is unbelievable. He is saying that this is something that we were going to do together. And this is happening in Advent. When Christ came into this world, when God gave Himself to us, He's saying, this mission is at hand. We're going to be relational now. And we're going to do this together. And so I think this is great. And then it goes on to verse 14. And I really like this. And it says this. It says, "The voice that had been an enigma in the heavens chose to become human and live surrounded by His creation. We have seen Him, undeniably splendor and enveloped Him, the one true Son of God, evidence in the perfect balance of grace and truth." If you were just reading your NIV, this is what it was saying. The NIV would say, "The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us." So this person likes fancy words. But the voice that had been an enigma in the heavens chose to become human. God chose to become human. I love that. You didn't feel like, oh gosh, they've really messed things up. Now I better go down and fix things. No. He chose. He chose to become human, and then I love how it ends here. As God came into this world, God didn't come into this world to point a finger and try to come in and mix things up and try to say you're doing everything wrong. You're just a mess. It says He came with the perfect balance of grace and truth. Christ came with the perfect balance of grace and truth. I've learned in my life that pastors are generally, not always the most normal people to hang out with, I guess. Except for Brian and I, we're pretty normal, right? Yeah. If you want a fun time, here we are. Anyway, sometimes pastors cannot be like that. But anyway, I've also learned that pastors, man, if you find a good group of pastors, and they're just some of the greatest people to be around, and you can get together and you can talk to them and you can be like, man, I really flopped here. I really messed up. I tried this program and it fell on its face, or I tried to do this outreach event and no one came. And the thing is that when you're in that good group of pastors, they'll be like, yeah, that's okay. You're still working for the kingdom. You're still doing a good job. And they're just full of grace. And I think we like to be around people full of grace, right? It's when we start to get, everything, and we're just judged and stuff. We opt not to hang out with those people. We like to be with the people that are full of grace. When we're in a relationship with someone, we hope that they have grace. At least I married a wife who was full of grace. But anyway, and so we like that. We gravitate towards that. And how beautiful it is that when God came into this world, He came into this world full of grace. God came into this world full of grace. And I think that's a beautiful thing to be reminded of, and it's a beautiful thing to remember, that God is full of grace when He comes into this world. The second one is that God comes to speak truth. And I don't always like to be around people who always speak truth, because I don't need everybody, for some reason middle schoolers always have to point out to me that I'm bald. I'm like, I know I'm bald. I own a mirror. But anyway, but you middle school teachers, that if you want honesty, talk to a middle school student. But you have that, and so but that can be hard to be around those people that speak truth all the time. But what makes you better? People who speak truth to you, right? What makes you better? People who say, "This is how you're doing it. This probably is a better way to do it." When you can hear that, and that only just shapes you as a person, maybe shapes you in doing relationships, and maybe just shapes you as saying, maybe this is how I can do my profession a little bit better. It can hurt, but it makes you better. And I love how we see here in John, how we were reminded that when God became fully human, He came full of grace, and He came to speak the truth. So even though that may have hurt, it was great. And so I think that's something that we need to hear on this first Sunday of Advent. That when we hear and are reminded that God is with us, that's what Christmas is about. God, the moment that Jesus is conceived in Mary's belly, the moment that happens, that everything now is different. The story has changed. All of the prophets that were saying, we need a Savior, we need a Savior. Well, guess what? You got a Savior. All of the scriptures that go even back before that are talking about how things need to get back to the garden and how we need to get back to Genesis 1 and 2. Well, guess what? The story has changed. The Savior has come. Things are now different. Everything has changed. And you and I are part of that story. You and I are part of that change. Just as we read about the cosmos and how big everything is, we are part of the cosmos. We are part of what God created. You and I are part of this story that has been forever changed by Christ coming into this world. By God saying, this is the present, and us opening it up and saying, this is exactly what we needed. How did you know? And we were reminded that God is relational, and God is desiring to be relational right now with us. God came in a way where He's full of grace and He speaks the truth to us so that we can bond this relationship, so that we can be part of this new story that is to change this world forever. And that is all happening in this Advent story. That is all happening right now in this season.